Joe Stevenson, what does he do from here?
I think Joe Daddy's got some problems at lightweight. I mean, I was saying to you off the air before that I think, Joe struggles against the elite guys. If he is a physically dominant fighter over you, if he has all the physical tools, then Joe performs well, and Joe is one of the best guys out there. But when, Joe's fighting those elite guys, he's not able to kick his game up that last level. And I think that's, a really big problem. And, I think it is. There's a suggestion, the talk out there, Joe Daddy going to featherweight. And I think, dropping down to 145 is certainly a distinct possibility. I think if he goes to that weight class and he doesn't have to cut too much muscle. Now, you remember, this is a guy that won the Ultimate Fighter at 170. If he doesn't have to cut too much muscle to make that, I think he could be a big factor down there because he does have a varied game. And, I think he would cause some real interesting problems for guys at that, weight. I'd like to see him go down, to be honest with you, and fight somebody like a Josh Christie.
Yep. 85. You had two big winners, Marquardt, Damian Maia. Maia just, again, went through another opponent in Chael Sonnen. And Marquardt just outthinks and just out-executed Wilson Gouveia, who kind of looked like a one-trick pony without his kick. So who's the guy that you want to see get the first shot at Anderson Silva if he does get through latest at 97?
Well, the emotional part of me would say Demian Maia. He's now 10-0. He's won all these fights. I don't know if he got submission of the night tonight because I didn't hear, but he had 3 in a row prior to tonight. And you'd say, well, what more does a guy have to do? But I think when you look at, his body of work and you look at it compared to Nate Marquardt's, I think maybe Nate deserves it a little bit more. I think Nate is a very, very, very good mixed martial artist, and I think he's a much improved. I was talking to Greg Jackson the other day about Nate at length, and Greg says, he would never have believed if you had told him the day after he had lost to Anderson Silva that he would be as good as he is right now. He said the improvement he's made working with GSP and Rashad has been phenomenal. And he thinks that, Nate is really the next guy from that camp who may break out. So I think that he has beaten better competition. He's been at or near the top more. And even though he's gotten his title shot, I think, it would be more fair for him to go ahead and get it as opposed to Demian Maia. I think Demian now needs to fight, that next level of guy up. And if he can beat him, then, obviously you're not going to be able to deny him. But I really do think Nate deserves a crack.
All right, before we get you out of here, let's look ahead a little bit. UFC 99, it looks like it's just about official for Germany. What are you hearing about that card? I guess we heard a little bit of Kenny Florian potentially against BJ Penn as the main event. From what you hear, can we officially rule out that Couture is going to fight on that card, or is there still a sliver of hope that maybe it's against Crow Cop at 99?
Yeah, I do not think that Crow Cop-Randy fight is going to happen. What I'm hearing is that the second fight on that card is going to be Franklin against Vanderlei Silva at 185. Okay. So I think that fight will go there with BJ and Kenny being the main event. I just don't know, where anybody's coming up with this. I asked Dana about it the other day, and Dana is, not the type to, directly lie to you. If he's had talks, if he's doing it, he will tell you. And I specifically asked him about that, and he disavowed any knowledge of it. Now, the one caveat to that would be, his matchmaker Joe Silva may have been playing with some things, and Joe Silva sometimes, starts to lay the groundwork for a fight and then presents it to Dana. That could potentially be, but I think a card, Steve, as significant to them as Germany is, and it make no mistake, it's a very significant card for them, that he's going to want to have, more of a hand and more of a say in the fight. So I tend to think that that's, not going to be there. I wonder if something's going on with Couture for 100, though. Some of the comments that Dana's made, and he's been very coy about it. Is it possible that who could be fighting at UFC 100 against Randy Couture?
Yep. Well, I mentioned it the other day in the blog. Neil Davidson, we talked to him for tonight's show, and Neil had yesterday that Dana White said the main event of 100 is not GSP Alves, so that's got to mean something. And when Neil did a follow-up, I think it was today, with Dana White, Dana said, no, it's just too soon to get a Fedor deal done, so probably not going to happen. But I don't think that erases all hopes.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think, I think he's going to say the main event of UFC 100 is going to be Henderson Bisping. I think, honestly, I think if I had to predict, that's what it's going to be, with GSP and Alves being the second fight there. But I could be wrong.
Was that the? Do you know who we're talking? Was that the guy you were alluding to, or you were alluding to the winner of Mir and Lesnar?
No. I was alluding to Fedor.
Okay.
And I think that if he could pull that off, I think that and I wrote this a long time ago in I think it was in one of my mailbags. Somebody said to me, "What do you want to see in UFC 100?" And I said, why not go to Affliction, go to Fedor's people, and say, look, we understand we haven't been able to come, to a long-term deal. So we don't normally do one-offs, but, hey, we'll do a fight with you. We'll give the fight that the people want to see, Randy Couture against Fedor. So many people still want to see that. And it makes sense from the UFC standpoint now, because when Randy was a champion, if Fedor comes in and beats him, all of a sudden, you're creating a monster for another organization. Now Randy's been knocked out by Brock Lesnar, and if Fedor comes in there and knocks out Randy, then I think that builds interest in a Brock Lesnar Fedor fight, or assuming that Brock survives Frank Mir, which is no guarantee. And if Randy beats him, then that validates what Dana's been saying all along. So it's a good thing for the UFC. So I don't think normally Dana's not a guy that does one-offs, but for UFC 100, special situation, I don't know anything, so I don't want anybody to think that, I've been, had somebody whispering in my ear. This is just speculation, but I would suspect, knowing them as I do and knowing Dana as I do, that he'd love to be able to pull that, shocker off and announce that, and it would certainly make UFC 100, a very, major and significant event.
Right. Completely speculation on my part, too, when I wrote it on the blog yesterday. But talking to both of the Coutures the other day at the gym, I don't know, I just get this vibe that there's something beneath the surface that they're keeping from us, so. Just my read. I'm sure they told him remain tight-lipped, and also don't throw it out there because it's probably a long shot. But there just hasn't been any word from the Coutures about exactly who he's going to fight, who he wants to fight, and I keep hearing he's not really that inspired to fight anyone who's been presented to this point.
Well, yeah, I think Nogueira would be an interesting fight for him, and I think he's indicated that he would like to fight Nogueira. But, he's going to think the problem with Nogueira and the problem with a lot of these guys to fight for Randy, even Crow Cop, he's going to be doing that movie, so when is he going to get out of training? So, Steve, to me, when you look at those kind of fights, you say, well, he's going to get out of this movie and get into training. He's not going to have a lot of time to train for those guys. But if you push him back to UFC 100, so that gives him an extra month from UFC 99. That'll give him that little bit of extra time, and maybe he can work a schedule such that he'll be able to get into a training camp and immediately go in there and start preparing for the fight that, really, he not only he has won it, but mixed martial arts fans have won it for years. I think that is, like you say, we're speculating here, but, it's informed speculation. We know the UFC, we know the people, we know what they like to do. I think that, at least it's a possibility that has to be considered that could end up being the main event.
All right, Kevin. Thank you. We appreciate it. Go get some sleep, and we'll see you back in Vegas.
Yeah, I love those 3-hour sleep nights. See you soon, Steve. Thanks.
There you go. Kevin Iole, Yahoo Sports, MMA, and boxing writer, joining us from New York on the boxing. Miguel Cotto, a winner. Kelly Pavlik, a winner. UFC 95 is in the books. Terry Edom beat Brian Cobb, Junior Dos Santos. Got a TKO over Stefan Struve. Evan Dunham, Vegas guy now, beat Per Eklund with a KO. Mike Cisna-Levitz snapped the knee. Wasn't that bad, but he popped something on Neil Grove. He got a submission victory. Paul Kelly, a winner, unanimous decision over Troy Mandalones. And then the main fight, shocker, Koscheck knocked out by something called Paulo Tiago. Nate the Great, he beats Wilson Gouveia. Damian Maia, another submission, fifth straight submission of the night. So he gets the win over Chael Sonnen. Dan Hardy, knockout victory in the first 4 minutes of the fight against Rory Markham. And then the main event, Diego Sanchez, a win, his first fight at 155 over Joe Stevenson. Thanks to Dan Hardy, who popped on with us, Damian Maia, also Marshall Zelaznik, UFC in the UK, and Kevin Iole as well from Yahoo Sports. You can hear the archive of this show later today, either on ESPN1100.com, up on YouTube, or at CageWriter.com. Thanks to Clay Baker. Thanks to Ariel Helwani as well. We are out of here, back at UFC 96 in just a couple of weeks, live from Columbus.